Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Gabriel Santos from gfsantos.com, and in today's video I'm going to share with you all how I got addicted to marijuana. About 8 years ago, let's see, 2010 or so, I smoked weed for the first time. But prior to that, my perception about weed was, it's bad. It's closer to meth, like the experience. And if I do weed, then my life will turn into shambles, and it's just something I should stay away from. And so that was my story about weed. And then when I finally did weed, I realized that it's not that bad. Like, it's definitely not meth. And in fact, it's kind of cool, and it's a dope experience, and it's not something that I need to shame or make wrong and make others wrong for doing it. But I had this conflicting belief system. One was weed was bad, I shouldn't do it. And the other one was weed is awesome, it's okay. And so I unknowingly had these conflicting identities, and I would be two different people depending on what the situation was. And so behind the scenes, I was okay with weed, but out in the open, say with my family or certain friends, I kept this image of I'm good, I don't do weed. Anyways, so in a short amount of time, I was already smoking weed by myself, like late at night. And within a year, I was smoking every day, multiple times a day. And so 2010 passed, and I was in college now, and I spent the summer after high school smoking weed every day pretty much, and it was fine. It was very innocent, and I didn't experience having a problem with it. I was just having fun, and I had no real responsibilities because school was over. I was just waiting for college to start. And mind you, in high school, I was a very high performer, not just academically, but athletically and other areas, just being a functional human. I graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA. I was a baseball player. I kept my room clean. I kept on top of my physical health, so to speak, as much as a 16-year-old would do, right? Anyway, so when college finally started up, it's time, there's a time and place for fun, and there's also a time and place for work. But despite that, I had already built up a habit of smoking weed every day. And I didn't realize it, but, I was not even a little bit, I was dependent on it. I was emotionally dependent on it, for sure. And what I mean by emotionally dependent is that, I would deal with anxiety and stress like many people do. And instead of having healthy ways to deal with the cause of the stress and anxiety, I would use weed to deal with the symptoms of the stress and anxiety. And it took me years and years and years to finally get to the cause of stress and anxiety for me. But in the meantime, I was, smoking weed just to deal with that. And, so I was emotionally dependent on weed, and in ways psychologically dependent, because, like most people or many people, I deal with negative thoughts. I deal with self-defeating, self-sabotaging thoughts. And so weed would help me not, be with those thoughts and emotions all day long. Anyways, so I recognized by the time the first semester or first quarter of college was done, I realized that I'm smoking weed a little too much. And I noticed that I had a problem when I would say I shouldn't smoke today, or I would have a plan of not smoking today, and I would still smoke. And in hindsight, I think the judgment of myself is what magnified this sense of oh my God, there's a problem. I made it a big deal, because it's you get what I'm saying? Like, I was like, oh my God, this is so wrong. It's a drug. It's what's wrong with me. And, but nonetheless, I seem to lack control, really. And so, for whatever reason, because of the way that weed would help me emotionally, I was unwilling to take control of it, and I let it be more of a priority in my life. And I really want to stress this home, actually. And I didn't know this at the time, but weed really helped me emotionally. It really did, because I was suffering a lot emotionally and mentally, and weed is something that really was like the only thing that brought me a sense of peace and ease away from those emotional and psychological issues. But at the same time, my grades were dropping. I wasn't taking care of my body, and anyways, okay. So yeah. So moving forward, I was smoking every day, and I just didn't have control, and I didn't have another way to cope with stress or create emotional security. Weed was the only thing. And then to top that off, weed, when you smoke it every day, it does have a chemical effect on you. And so you smoke weed, you get high, and then when you come down, you get low. And chemically speaking, you can really feel it. It's kind of like when you eat like 5 pizza slices, you feel the chemical effect on your body. You might feel a little groggy, sleepy, whatever. And in a similar way, when you smoke weed, there are effects. And so I'm smoking weed every day, twice a day, and I'm going up, and then I'm going really down, and then you go up a little bit more when you smoke again, but you get more down. And so you can imagine, after 8 years of smoking, you've created this chemical environment. I created this chemical environment where, like, weed was the only thing that got us up, but it's also the same thing that makes us go way down. And so, yeah, I'd say what got me addicted to weed, so to speak, was not realizing the way that it was helping me emotionally, and even underneath that, me not knowing that there was like I didn't know that I was emotionally dependent to it for a long time, and so it's a big clusterfuck of confusion, being addicted to marijuana, and I was doing my best, so to speak, and I just didn't have any boundaries with it. I didn't realize that it was gonna all turn out that way. I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have any rules. I just didn't have any rules. And by the time that I just had created this habit, and a lack of awareness of what was going on in terms of habits and emotions and things like that. And so in a way, it was by accident. Like, my intention wasn't to get addicted, but the truth is that my actions and my decisions are what led to me being addicted. And I would say, if you want to get really raw with it, being addicted is the process of saying yes when really you want to say no. And so you train yourself unknowingly to say yes all the time, to the point where you can't say no. Like, you don't know how to say no and follow through. You just train yourself to be like that. You just, I shouldn't smoke today, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So it's like, now you only have a yes button and there's no button. So I had to really train myself I had to create a no button. I had to follow through. And there's resistance. Like, your brain doesn't want to do it, your body doesn't want to do it because you're just so used to saying yes all the time. But over time, just like any habit, it gets easier and the muscle of saying no gets stronger. And I truly believe that the muscle of saying no and following through is one of the most important muscles and skills that a person going through marijuana addiction must create in order to have self-control again. Yeah, that's the 10-minute version of how I got addicted to marijuana. I hope that, if you related to some of that you can find some, ease and that you feel more connected, that, you're not the only one who's going through this, and what you're going through is pretty typical of marijuana addiction, and that there is a possibility of being you again and not being enslaved to a substance, and that everything's going to be okay, and that there's a way out, so to speak. And if you're looking for more support, I highly recommend you watch my other videos. And if you want to know a little more in detail of some of the tools and breakthroughs that allowed me to create control and to no longer be addicted to weed, I highly recommend you buy and read my book, which is called Marijuana Mindfulness, Transcend the Addiction Cycle and Gain Ultimate Self-Control. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. I will see you next time, but until then, peace.